Acts chapter 26, verse number 14. Okay? You go read it for yourself. This isn't in here. This isn't there. Okay? Okay. Here's what he says. Remember when Paul was going down the road, okay? And God was trying to give Paul a warning. Hey, Paul, you're hanging out with the wrong people. I need you to hang out with the right people. And all of a sudden, they're going down the road. He's got all of his buddies with him. He's got his posse. He's got his homies. He's got his friends. He's got whatever you want to call them. They're all going together. They're traveling. And all of a sudden, Jesus shows up. And what does Paul do? He hits the deck. Boom. And here's what happened. Here's what Paul says in 26:14. When we had all fallen to the ground, I heard a voice speaking to me in the Hebrew language. Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Is it hard for you to kick against the goads? And sometimes we don't understand what goads. What are you talking about? What is goads? Now listen. Before Saul had become a follower of Christ, Jesus was saying, why are you persecuting me? Why are you kicking against me? Why are you kicking against the goad? And the goad was a piece of farm equipment. And what they would do is on one end of this piece of equipment, I'm getting feedback really bad. Somewhere. But anyway, y'all just keep it up. It'll show up good somewhere else. Okay, so on this one end of the goad, they would take and they would use it as a prod. And so when the animal was getting out of line, they would use the prod on it. The other end of the farm equipment had a very sharp blade on it. And what happened was, as they were going down through there and plowing, dirt and mud would get clogged up on the plow. So what he would do is turn the goat around and would scrape off the mud and the dirt and then turn it back around, and the animals could then clean or be very easy for them to go through the plowing. God's got a prod for us. And every once in a while when we get out of line, it's zit, zit, zit. And we say, oh, I got you. That hurts. So until you get back in line, he's going to continue to zit, zit, zit you. Zit, zit, zit you, okay? Going to get shocked. But other times in our life, when the mud and the dirt and everything seems to fog us up and we can't plow in a straight line anymore, what God does is he takes this sharp thing that is sharper than a two-edged sword that's on the other end of this goad with a sweet little gentle spirit, and he begins to start wiping away the dirt and the mud and everything that's there. Okay? So, remember the old saying, what's got your goad? No, it's actually what's got your goat, I think. But anyway, every once in a while we've got to understand certain things, okay? There was a preacher he was talking about, he was at a conference in New York, and there were some parents that came up to him. They were in their 50s, and they came up to him and they said, listen, we know you can pray. I need you to pray very hard for my daughter. And he said, well, why? She's 26 years old and she's getting ready to marry a non-Christian. They had tears just flowing down their face. They were so sad. And so many times we think about these things because you need to understand something, ladies and gentlemen. As parents, we carry a huge mantle. And in that mantle, sometimes it gets very, very hard to understand these things, okay? So, Jesus is telling us to stop kicking against the goads. He tells us that every once in a while, you need to quit kicking. You need to look at the days in your life. And again, I'm not telling you to dish your friends who aren't Christians. That's not what he's saying. He's saying be very, very careful who the days are in your life, because the days in your life are the ones that's going to reflect upon who you're going to become. Okay? And that's why Jesus told us to yoke up with him. Because when we yoke up with him, we're going to go the right way. Because when you get out of line, God's going to prod you. And he's going to begin to do those things. Okay, so now here's the thing. Friday night we showed a movie written about the song, out of the Song of Solomon. And so God gives us good examples in the Bible and bad examples in the Bible. And God gave us a really good bad example by a guy by the name of Solomon. Solomon, who was a solo man. He wanted to do things his way. He asked, God says, if I could give you one thing, what would you want? Wisdom. And look at what he did with the wisdom that he gave him, okay? He was wealthy. If you go back in the day that, and we shared with this last week, they have now found the stables where Solomon had kept his horses. 40,000 horses. That's a big stable. That is huge, okay? It's actually in the Holy Land. You can look it up, okay? Solomon would tell us he would have servants to go up to the mountains and collect the ice so that he could have some margaritas. Okay? It's just a little joke. They did go, but if you go back and look, they did go to the mountains to get the ice and come back. Okay? And they did these things. Okay? He also, around his houses, he built moats. And in the moats, he put exotic fishes in there, not crocodiles and things like that, okay? But in 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 1 through 10, you go back and you can read it in the Message. But it said basically that King Solomon had made alliances with foreign kings. He loved many foreign women. Listen, when you get up with the wrong alliance, you end up in a wrong place or a different place. Ecclesiastes 1:14, here's what he said. After 40 years of wasting his life, he's you know, and this is what's really, really cool about Solomon, because he didn't really pull any punches, okay? And you never know the kind of things that Solomon experienced in everything. And you and I are not going to do the things because why? God wants to save us from making a mess of our life, okay? So you've got to look at everything that he said. And he says that I'm just chasing after all of these things, every one of them. And Solomon tells us and you all can get these later. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, he says this. He says, remember your Creator in the days of your youth. What he's saying is, when you're young, don't waste your time. Make the best of that time. What's he saying? Don't kick against the goads. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to share with you. He says, in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 11, the words of the wise are like. And you begin to see what he's saying. Same thing, goads. They're collected sayings like firmly embedded nails. He says, given by one shepherd. What's he saying? Don't kick against the goads. Jesus said it in the New Testament. He said it in the Old Testament. Don't kick against these things. So Jesus starts talking about talking to his disciples. He says, listen, you ever heard the saying, my friend just dissed me? Okay? Jesus used that phrase before it was ever popular. Jesus told his disciples, he said, listen, if you go out here and you start telling them about me and they disrespect you or they diss you, you know what he said to do? Wipe your feet off and go on. Don't hang out with them. If they don't respect you, wipe your feet off and go on. Jesus said that even before it became famous in the common knowledge and language of people today. Jesus told his disciples, if they disrespect you. Now, in Ecclesiastes, again, what's Jesus saying? Like we said last week, just kick off the dirt from your flip-flops. Okay? So, here's some tough stuff, okay? And so let me just kind of go through these things of tough stuff. Number one, friends are like elevators. They can either take you up or bring you down. Okay? Now, there are times that when you go into a hotel, and that hotel, you check in, and they say, okay, your room number is 745. Now, when you get in that elevator, you don't push floor number 2, right? You want floor number 7. And on your key, they told you, it's not on your key, but they wrote it down for you so you wouldn't forget. You are in room 745, right? Now, if you get off on floor number 6 and you go to room 645, your key isn't going to work. You got to have the right key for the right door to get your way in there. That's the way that Jesus is trying to tell you about your friends. Your friends might be taking you to the right room or the right place. But I'm going to tell you something. If they don't have the right key, you ain't getting in. And you need to understand, this is what Jesus is trying to tell you. He's trying to say, listen, I have given you the right room. As a matter of fact, what did Jesus say? He says to his disciples, he says, I've gone away to prepare a place for you, that where I am, there you may be also. He says, if it were not so, I would not have told you so. He says, in my Father's house are many mansions, or many rooms. Many rooms. And he's given you the key to the room. And the only way you can get into that room is through Jesus. You can't get through with your friends. Okay? But Jesus is trying to tell us that with our friends, there's a little thing called koinonia, okay? And it's called fellowship. And that's what Jesus wants you to have with your friends, is fellowship. But let me say this to you. You can only have fellowship with like people. Do you understand that? You've got to have something in common. There's a lot of people out here that they may say you're like Facebook. There's all these people, they want to be your friends, right? And so they send you a request. And you honor the request. And then they start posting things that you don't like. What do? Well, I leave it up. Why? So everybody knows that's what I think. Do you? Or do you take it down? You delete it, right? Or sometimes you unfriend them. Why? Because their thoughts, their beliefs are not what you want to see, right? That's what Jesus is trying to tell you. That's what koinonia is all about. It's about fellowship. Two people joining together with the right relationships, with the right thoughts. Because that way you're yoked together and you're going to have a straight path. And that's what he says. He starts saying, listen, you got to be, your friends can either take you up or take you down. And let me say this to you. You cannot have friends in a neutral zone. What did I tell you? God is black and white. He does not have gray areas. It is either right or wrong. Okay? All right. Number 2, about your friends. They'll make you feel bad about yourself. You ever been around certain people that all they do is just drag you down? Right? So, this guy has an illustration. He says, one time, he says, I've regularly invited people out of my life. He says, it's not easy to do. He says, I delete people, and it's not that they're not my friends, but there's no fellowship anymore. He said, I bought this new truck, a few years ago. He said, I was so excited about this new truck. He said, so he wanted to show it off to his friend that he was in fellowship with, okay? And God had been trying to zit, goad him and tell him, you don't need to be hanging around with this guy. This guy is bringing you down. But he just kept going against God and going against God and going against God. So he says, I'm not sure about his motives and what he says. He says, but I was like, God, I just feel that I should continue to stay in friendship or whatever. But he said, this is the straw that broke the camel back. He says, I took and I showed my truck to him. And here's what he says. It's a nice truck. It would be really cool. I mean, if I had a truck, I would customize it. Those are stock wheels. I would change that and change this. And he says, and he stepped back for a minute, and he says, I'm thinking to myself, dude, you can't even rejoice that I got a new truck? And you're talking about it, that it would be nice, customized and this and that. And he says, so I thought in my mind, done, delete. He says, because listen, he said, contact erased. He says, I've seen this guy from time to time, and he says, there's no more bro hugs. He says, because every time I would see this guy, I never realized that this guy was always bringing me down. Always negative, always negative, always negative. And honestly, Jimmy talks about some of the churches that he goes in, and he shares sometimes, when he goes into some of those churches and they look at his hair, it's different. The music that he sings, it's different. When he's looking for some dancers that are dependable. So if you want to try out, talk to Jimmy. Okay? So anyway, I think he wrote one time that somebody walked up to him and said, I don't like your hair. I don't like your style of music. And it's like, okay. I probably would have said back, well, I don't like your hair either and your style of music, but we shouldn't do that. But let me say this to you, and I've said it to you before. We each and every one have our style of music and what turns us on and turns us off, okay? There are things that we like, things that we don't like. And what ends up happening is we want everybody to be fashioned just like us. And I am so glad that God did not create us all the same. Okay? Because if they did, I would probably not be in church. Because most people that I find in church are boring. They really are. Okay? Honestly. I'm not going to disrespect the communion table. But here's what they do. Boring. I stayed up last night playing too much Candy Crush. Writing on Facebook. Looking at everybody's life and writing things back that I can't even stay awake in church. We're going to sing about, I Have a Friend in God. Sing that song. And I see a lot of people, don't move. Stay here. I've heard when you go into a Baptist church, you don't raise your hand. They're in the wrong church. Not in this Baptist church. You want to raise your hand? Go for it. You want to stand in the pew? Go for it. Just don't walk them, okay? But what I'm saying is this. We say a lot of times, we got to do it this way. And I understand, don't disrespect the house of God, okay? But disrespecting the house of God is when you got a stinking frown on your face all day long. That's disrespect of God. Do you know that? God says that a smile or laughter brings good medicine to your soul. You want to know why you're sick all the time? Look in the mirror. Okay? I'd be sick if I wore that face all day too. Okay, number 3. They negatively impact your reputation. You know what people are saying behind your back? Yeah, they're a Christian, all right. Do you know who they're hanging out with? Sometimes we hang out with the wrong person, and all of a sudden, if we're hanging around with somebody that's materialistic or negative all the time, guess what happens? We become that way, and it starts ruining your reputation. Okay? Listen, he says you need to hang out with the right they, okay? And then, number 4, and here's the thing. They bring out the worst in you. I've shared with you last week, it's telling a story, and I'll talk about they bring out the worst in you. Let's just use my life as an example. I got out, or I was in the service, and in the service there's not a lot to do, okay? And so what ends up happening is, if you've ever been in the service, there's a lot of wrong days that you can hang out with, and they will get you into trouble. And so I was the nice guy because I never really drank to get drunk, okay? Number one, I couldn't stand beer, okay? But I could find 50 things to do with orange juice or Coke, okay? But I was always the designated driver. And so these guys would want to stay out all night. I'm the designated driver to make sure they get back to the barracks or back to the post alive. Because some of them would go into bars and get into fights, and we'd have to drag them out. So while they're staying out all night and I'm the designated driver, guess who's staying out all night? The designated driver. And where was my wife and kids? Home. I'd come in and, where you been? I had to take these guys here, and here. And then I'd have to be back into work at 7 o'clock in the morning or 7:30, okay? So then all of a sudden, the me, Chuck, became the they, Chuck. It was all about me and what I wanted. And I almost lost everything in my whole life because of the me and the they that was there. Until I went back and renewed with Christ. I've shared with you that even after we came back from Europe, my wife had gotten a job at Champion International. She had started there as a temp agent and got a job. I came back, I had a job with Top Value Stamps in Dayton, and they basically lied to me about what they wanted me to do. And when I got there and I found out what they wanted me to do, I told them, I said, you better be concerned, because if I'm not here, I'm probably looking for another job. But while I'm here, I'll help you do what you want me to do, but that is not what I signed up for. And plus you lied to me about some other things. And so finally, my wife, with the connection, she got a job with me, or I got a job with her at Champion International. But the problem was the me, Chuck, had not changed everything. There was still a part of me, Chuck, called my language that was absolutely atrocious, absolutely embarrassing. And so what ended up happening was people began to know who I was, and they knew who she was. And she said to me one day, she says, I love you, but your language is terrible. It is embarrassing to me. It was then that I realized, okay, God, I have been kicking against the goads. it's time to follow and do what is right. Right after that, we got back in church. Our life has been great. It has been wonderful. Do we have issues? Yeah. She has a big one. Mine are not big. But what did I do? I started surrounding myself with the right things. And once I did that, things came back. And this is what God is saying to you, ladies and gentlemen. You need to do your days God's way and quit trying to do it your way. Okay? Honestly, and think about this for a minute. We get crazy sometimes in church, but what's wrong with that? God says we're peculiar people anyway. Okay? But there's an extreme of craziness, like healing snakes. Okay? That's out of my league. It may be in theirs. So here's what I'm saying to you this morning. As Jimmy comes and he's going to sing the invitation this morning. How did I do in my 20 minutes? Did I do well? I think I did good. I got 10 left? Okay. It might take me about 10 for you to get up here. Just walk slow. But here's what I'm saying to you. And let's just get serious for a minute, okay? You need to take, right now, you need to take a friendatory in your life. You need to take an inventory of who's your friends. And you need to start crossing some off. Now, that doesn't mean that you get rid of these people that you're crossing off. That just means that I've got to start having more fellowship with the ones that are on the list. So that why? So that when I get with these other people, they don't change me. They don't bring me down. Jimmy was talking about the young man who was abused and died at the age of 18. There's a lot more kids out here just exactly like this right now. There's a lot of people out here right now that are being abused and suffering and asking the question, is this all there is to life? If there is, let's end it. Let's end it. What I'm saying to you is this. You need to reach into these people's lives and show to them that there is something more to life than what they have. There's something more to life than crack and heroin. There's more to life than alcohol and drugs. There's more to life than being abused and suffering. There's someone that loves you unconditionally and will help you if you will yoke up with him to plow straight and strong. Every once in a while, we all need a goad. But can I tell you this? The Bible says that God only disciplines those that he loves. Because he's our Father. So my question to you this morning is, who do you need to check off today? And have you truly yoked up with Jesus? That's why he says, try me, my burdens are light. You yoke up with him, honey, you got all the strength in the world. All you need. Let's stand. Hello, my name is Chuck Gott. I'm the pastor here at Calvary Baptist Church. We would like to say thank you very much for taking the time out to view this message. We'd also like to invite you to our church here, located at 1601 Jackson Lane in Middletown, Ohio.
We're a Southern Baptist church with a big heart, and we love everyone that walks in the door. You will find that people here friendly, enjoyable, and full of life. So at any time, if you need to get a hold of us, you can contact us at the church here at area code 513-423-7251. Our time of services are Sunday morning. We have Sunday school or life groups at 9:30, followed by worship service at 10:45. Our Awana program, consisting of Puggles all the way through Trek, it runs on Sunday evening at 6 p.m., as well as a worship service that will be going on for the parents and others at that time. Then on Wednesday night, we have a Bible study, small group, which will be at 7 p.m. And then we also have small groups during the week. Anytime you'd like information, again, just give us a call, 513-423-7251.